Okay, cool. All right, so hi, host Eric here, talking with famous people, and we are going to answer a question that we read from Quora. The question on Quora said, "Are introverts more likely to be perceived as eccentric, or something along those lines?" Because eccentricity correlates with introverts, but I think the question, the question is elicited once you ask that. Well, how does it correlate with types in general? So I don't think it correlates just with introversion. Does anybody buy that notion right off the bat that it's just introversion correlates with eccentricity? Hi, Franco. Pascal says no, she doesn't buy that notion. Um,
But
I don't buy it either. I do think it probably does correlate with types, however, depending on how you define eccentricity. Anybody else want to chime in on the introvert correlation? Anybody else think that it does correlate with introversion?
well, before I do that, boss guy said that Eric is eccentric in the chat. I want them to. Oh, NE equals eccentric.
I think N equals eccentric. The higher the N, the more eccentric. But NI is eccentric too, but it depends how you define it. They're more weird, and NE's more eccentric, I guess,
Well,
or vice
define
versa.
eccentric.
Well,
First, define eccentric for me. So, like, how you would define eccentric.
okay, well, I tend to think, and I suppose this is why Faust guys indicated it correlated with NE. I tend to think of it as implying some sort of scatterbrainediness, often some sort of collecting weird stuff, and or just behaving with a dismissal of social expectations, social norms, and stuff like that, and prioritization of one's own interests, even if everybody else thinks they're ridiculous or something like that. I don't have a dictionary definition, but that seems to explain it pretty well.
Yeah, but or isn't it possible to have eccentricities that the person is aware of that they aren't necessarily they have them, but it's not that they don't care about societal norms, but they intrinsically have that trait. Like I have a trait like that. I mentioned before where I walk on my like toes almost, like the front of my feet. My heels don't touch the ground unless I make a conscious effort to. And it's not like that's habit. So
Okay, that's you displaying an eccentricity, but I don't think that's you being eccentric.
then what is eccentric?
Well, I think in the context of that question, it's sort of saying for the people that are generally perceived to be eccentric. For example, if you have a character in a show that if you had a multiple choice test and you said, "Would you describe which of the following adjectives would you use to describe this character?" Like for example, uh, if you're talking about Leave It to Beaver, you're gonna say, how many of you would describe the Beaver's dad as eccentric? Probably nobody would, really. He's like the least eccentric character I could think of at the moment. Whereas, but he might still display some eccentricity in terms of his behavior in any given moment, right? So I think eccentric as a description of a character in like a novel or a play or something is probably the meaning of the word that they're going for here, I would guess. Anybody else have thoughts on eccentricity regarding definition of what it is and how we ought to define it and stuff like that?
I don't understand what you mean by if we don't define eccentricity by someone who exhibits eccentric behavior. How do we define it?
Um, well, what I'm saying is eccentricity tends to correlate with intelligence, right? When you say that, like somebody who's somebody who's different might be described as anything from mentally ill to creepy to disturbed to delightfully different to eccentric to marginalized. I mean, there's all sorts of different words that people use for people who don't fit in with the normal, quote unquote. I mean, I guess it's not even the normal. It's more like that aren't they don't have S or F, basically. I mean, I think F sometimes do. I think it's more N than it is the FT thing.
Like, what that would mean is, or the reason you think that is because N types usually aren't as aware of their external environment as the S types would be, right? So they wouldn't be completely aware of how they come off, and they could come off as kind of awkward in certain ways, right?
Right. Files Guys has some definitions here. High FE reduces eccentricity. INFJs are conservative. Yeah, okay, but they INFJs are conservative in their choices, so to speak, but they'd like to display individualism at the same time. So they want to display their individualism. Okay, synonyms: unconventional, uncommon, abnormal, irregular, aberrant, anomalous, odd, queer, strange, peculiar, weird, bizarre, off-center, outlandish, freakish, extraordinary, idiosyncratic, quirky, singular, nonconformist, capricious, whimsical, outre, avant-garde, informal, way out, far out, offbeat, dotty, nutty, screwy, freaky, oddball, wacky, cranky, off the wall, madcap, zany, whimsical. Definitely whimsical. Definitely whimsical. You know, guys, there are people in the world who are eccentric, and that I feel bad for them, because the only real way to live well is to prioritize whimsy as your core value. Things that are whimsical, things that are darling. I think it's a lot better to be that kind of person. Regardless, Franco said, I would define it as having unconventional views, people that you would normally see as standing out from the common folk, I suppose. They don't really care about meeting in standard places by society. Yes, darling, boss guys. When something's like cool, it's cool. When something's really, really good, it's whimsical. And when something's just, then you say, oh my God, that is darling. Regardless, I think eccentric is a way that people say, I don't get that person, but he's on our team anyway. It's a way that they say, let's frame his weirdness as acceptable. Yeah, in other words, not insane. Oh, he seems kind of crazy to us SFJs, but
Without a complete detachment from reality or some shit.
He's been given a pass for his weirdness, basically what it means. We've all given him a pass for his weirdness. He's eccentric. You know? And I think there are types who really need and want labels that satisfactorily explain something to them, like that. Like, okay, now I know how to feel about it. Possibly useful, entertaining, not harmful. Exactly right, Files guys. Possibly useful, entertaining, not harmful, and also, can be safely laughed at, right? Can be safely laughed at. There's a certain element of that. But also, there's a certain amount of, like, probably the eccentric character in a play or something is smarter than the populace that laughs at him, right? So I think that's an interesting word. I think it's interesting the way that we parse things out like that to have these distinctions between types of crazy. Are you drawing, Zach? You look like you're drawing.
Yeah, I'm like half sketching while like I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I do that a lot too. It's.
You think that you think the external environment thing has something to do with it, like the sensing being lower in the function stack?
Ask that question again.
You think it has something to do with sensing being lower in the function stack? Earlier you mentioned something about having attachments to certain objects, like artifacts.
I think it's sensing higher in the stack. Intuition lower in the stack means more attachment to objects. I think.
I guess it would just be SI being in the stack.
Well, I might be a little hoardy, but I'm not attached to objects in the sense that I don't have, it calls upon to get rid of them. NPs are eccentric for sure. INTPs, ENTPs, but INTPs don't necessarily look eccentric. See, I see eccentricity as not something you possess, but rather a label that people give you to say what you said, Files guys. Like, ENFPs are eccentric, but they're not viewed as eccentric, right? They're viewed as tragic. With good cause, I think. They're kind of tragic. Have you watched that video of Sean, the ENFP? Oh, you watched it, Files guys, huh? Didn't you find him faintly tragic?
Tragic?
Yeah.
What do you mean by tragic?
Well, I feel the tragedy that they experience deeply because I identify with them a lot because of the one where I typed Sean, the ENFP, at the door at the party thing. Anyway, in that video, you can hear him. You can hear him struggling, trying to wrestle with the fact that where TI is supposed to be, he's stuck with fucking FI. I mean, wouldn't you interpret it that way, Files guys? Like, that's what was going on there. He was going like, I guess I kind of started to think maybe some of my things are just driven by my emotions. He's like, he wants to be rational.
What a horrible existence.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying they're tragic, ENFPs. But he was cool. He was great. I mean, but he can't spend 1 second alone, right? That's the other thing about ENFPs. You think I'm bad, ENFPs can't spend a fucking second alone. They go nuts. He's had the highest number of anybody when I asked that question about what size group do you want to hang out with. I think he said like, at first he said like 8 to 15 or something, He followed you around the house. Well, that way he wouldn't be lonely. Yeah, ENFPs are fun. Well, is that why you didn't marry him? They cook you food? Files guys, quit your lying. Well, I mean, I guess you could be into sapphic love. Sapphic love, tender and moist. Sapphic love.
One of my best friends is an ENFP. I don't know for sure though. What are some identifying factors of an ENFP?
If you want to see textbook ENFP, watch that video. Sean, Eric out and about typing Sean. That guy's fucking textbook. Textbook. You can see him in action. He's even got the multicolored fucking Yeah. Joseph's Technicolor raincoat shirt jacket on. You know, it's like, can I get any more color in the world? I want color. Oh, I met one. They didn't get obsessed with me. Oh, they're getting obsessed with you, maybe. Yeah. Well, I believe they are obsessed with INTPs. They're not obsessed with ENTPs. They're
Why do they get obsessed with INTPs?
Makes sense. They would be because you have in the dominant slot the thing they're missing. I don't see the thing they got as a fair trade at all, right? And they don't either. They don't know that they. I mean, I don't even think they understand really what's happened to them. You can't constrain NE with FI. It's insane. Dominant NE with no TI behind it has a very low percentage chance of success. That's the problem. They can succeed, like my ENFP friend Jenny. She married a rich dude, probably INTP, maybe an INTJ, I'm not sure. He's a computer programmer or something like that, and she lived in a big mansion in Pennsylvania with her little Aryan poster children and her introvert husband. And she just gets to play all the time. It's perfect for her. Yeah, I like INTJs. It's absolutely true. I always get along with INTJs and INFJs. I like them both. NI DOMs, I'm drawn to them. I'm drawn to the NI DOMs.
I don't think I've ever met, like, I don't know if I've ever met an INFJ.
They're rare. Real ones are rare.
I've met, it's hard for me to identify what types I have and haven't met. I feel like I've mostly met SF types.
That's not true of ENTPs, SF. But okay, say again. You met mostly SF types around your local community in person, or what? In general?
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I mean, I can't really think of anyone that might. Well, I guess my professor. I'm pretty sure my last professor was an INTP. I know he was. He was just exhibited so many of the traits. He was an introverted thinker for sure.
What do you think about Notice's comment? ENFPs want to put INTPs to work so they have more time to play, same as ENTPs. I may agree with you on the ENFP. I do not think I want to put INTPs to work so I have more time to play. That's ridiculous. I want to play with INTPs at playtime work. Okay? I want to put ENFJ to work so I have more time to play. That's Abraham has that job. Abraham has to do my work so I can play. That's ENFJ's job. INTP's job is to play with me. Alright, Quora, is that eccentric enough for you? Thanks for watching Talk with Finnish People. Join us. We have GoToMeeting all the time. I'll put a link in right now. I'll be up here for a little while longer, probably. I don't know. Hopefully. So, yeah. Talk to you later. Talking with famous people.